We're live. Chris Collins will slide in.
Hello. All right. Nathan Bond, Seth Varnadore here from the Bay Area Examiner. Alabama post-game show. Hashtag no moral victories as your South Florida Bulls fall to the number 10 team in the country. 17-3 this evening in front of a pretty packed house. I thought early in the game it was maybe like 60-40 Alabama fans, but I think it was actually closer to 50-50, maybe even slightly tilting in USF's favor. First things first, Day. I mean, I think he's the one note out of this game. The guy who's kind of, Logan Berryhill had it last week. This is the guy for this week. 3 sacks, the sack trick, a tackle for loss. I think he led the team in tackles. The guy was unreal tonight against poor number 74 for Alabama, the true freshman. Literally had no chance against them a few times tonight.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of days in Iowa, so it's kind of his first chance. I think seeing a lot of speed off the edge. This is like a performance that's like National Player of the Week good.
Yes.
Against Alabama, national TV, 3 sacks, tackles for loss. I mean, a great job. And he's been a guy that's flashed on film with his aggressiveness. You think somebody's going to take advantage of that, but nobody's been able to. They did. Defensively, they did a really good job. I mean, you can't really undersell how good it was.
Yeah.
Goal said after the game, they played winning football on defense. You asked Saban a question about the defense, and he was really complimentary of what they do. Unbelievable performance. And this was kind of, we talked, our defense has got to prove it. This was pretty good proof. Now they got to keep going.
Right.
But if this is your top level, that's good enough to win a lot of games.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw fits and starts of it against Western Kentucky. It took Western quite a while to kind of get up to speed and then kind of not take over the game, but obviously the offensive turnovers against Western really hurt the Bulls. Last week, 5 defensive turnovers for the Bulls. The Bulls sacked Alabama quarterbacks 5 times tonight. They, up until that final drive, USF had held them to like under 250 yards of offense, which coming into tonight, we knew obviously Alabama's offense is not the Alabama offense that we've seen the last few years with Tua, Jalen Hurts, players like Bryce Young, but they still have 4 5-star guys.
I mean, they average. They had a couple of linemen out, I think he said, but they average, they're 330 pounds up front. All their running backs are. I mean, we were down in the field before the game. I mean, every single running back's got thighs like this big. They are gargantuan humans. And USF was able to kind of hold their own for the most part of the run game until the very end of the game.
Yeah.
And, some of that was schematic, but man, they really took it to them physically. I thought this was much more than I was expecting from the USF defense. I think Alabama, their plan, I think, played into it a little bit, but I mean, before Alabama's first touchdown, they were averaging under 3 yards of play.
Yeah.
So you're talking late into the third quarter. You have the Alabama offense at 2.8 yards of play. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, Alabama quarterbacks go 10 of 24, 10 of 23 for 107 yards. Like, that's pretty damn good. Like, regardless of we figured Bama eventually would just be like, you know what, screw it, we're just going to run the ball down the field. That's what they did that final drive.
The third drive of the game.
Right.
Before
they were still trying to take deep shots in the middle of the second quarter, middle of the third quarter when it was still a really tight game instead of kind of doing what really worked. I know the defense did a really good job kind of balling them up for the most part. There was a couple big runs the very first play of the game, like, oh, well, this is and then they got off the field, and then they got off the field again and again and again and again. I can't be more proud of a defensive effort considering where this team, especially defensively, has been the last 4 years.
Yeah.
They haven't had that kind of performance. 2015 maybe was they
not against a good team.
No.
Yeah.
It was pretty remarkable. Obviously, we talked about it in the Patreon show this week. What could USF offensively do? This was kind of what we figured would happen. They just don't have the guys on the outside to beat Alabama defenders. You can talk about the offensive line needs to hold up better. Wide receivers need to get open. Byron Brown had to pull the ball down often.
We said before, that was one thing. I think we said worst case scenario offensively. Now the worst case scenario didn't happen because your defense played great. But worst case scenario offensively, we said it's very, very possible. I think not even worst case. We thought this was kind of a more distinct possibility than them blowing up on offense. Was you're going to get about 200 yards of offense and you're going to not going to score. They ended up with 264. A lot of that was Byron Brown had 114 or net 92 yards rushing. A lot of it was on his legs. If you take his legs out, you're under 200 yards offense, and if you don't get that fumble down there to kind of give you the
you probably don't
score. So the Alabama defense did what every coach that's kind of a little undermanned personnel-wise is always scared of. They just said, we're going to play man coverage. We're going to maybe put one guy deep, maybe zero. What are you going to do? And there's nothing you could really do. I thought they tried some things. I just couldn't consistently move it. And so that's kind of what you get. And, to his credit, I thought Golish was, after the game, no excuses. He didn't say, well, we could have, if we made a play here, made a play there. He said, winners win. No excuses, no more victories, no good effort. You got to win the game. So, and he kind of said their playing offense obviously wasn't good enough if they couldn't do more. So,
yep. It's glaring. This team needs some wide outs, and this was the perfect recruiting pitch, right? You compete against the number 10 team in the country, and it's glaring what they need out on offense. Come play. You will play.
You've got you had a receiver in the house for 2 weeks in a row that's committed to an SEC school. It's a outside receiver that can fly a little bit. Maybe he sees that and says, you know what, man, I can play early, right? That's kind of when we've been talking about, if you've been following like the Ponderosa stuff, the Patreon stuff, is the slot position an issue in terms of being able to really make the offense go? Because they try to do a pretty good job moving guys around and get them matched on safeties, but really, as much as you can get a slot matched on a safety, last year that's how they killed Alabama. They got Jalen Hyatt on a safety consistently, couldn't guard him. Sean Atkins is super dependable. That's just not his game. I think they need somebody, and it doesn't seem to be anybody outside right now either.
No.
And then I think how that compounds the issue is it takes Kelly Joyner out of the backfield, puts him at receiver because you need his speed there, and now you're not able to use him on some of those option pitches and things like that where now the Alabama linebacker has to run down a guy that's a little bit faster. Maybe he doesn't get there and you just pop one, but that's kind of where you're at in the first year. You're not going to have everything you need.
Right.
So,
yeah, they're still, cooking up the recipe, I think, probably outside of the defensive effort. Naquan Wright absolutely posterizing the Alabama safety early in the first quarter. That was massive. I think that was kind of a tone setter. Like, we may be here to play, and that's probably why you bring in an SEC transfer running back for games like this who get downhill and absolutely annihilate that.
He did something similar on the first drive against FAMU last week, and we pointed it out in the film room. But the dude he did it against was a guy that I think it was Downs, who was super ballyhooed as a recruit. I thought everybody said he's going to be a guy that can come in and play right away. He's a true freshman, came in play right. He got baptized a little bit there.
The Kyle Brandt angry runs, I believe that may show up. That's probably going to be an angry run, college style. There's really nothing glaring for me. RJ Perry had an ankle issue. He got hurt again. He's been kind of dealing with that.
It was good to see, though. This is something we talked about last week. That he's a guy. It seemed like he was struggling a little bit on the edge. They bumped him inside this week, and it felt like It felt like the pocket was a little bit more firm at times with him in there. I think that's where he's going to be when he comes back. Coach said he seems to think he'll be back next week.
Yeah.
I think he said the same with Amaris Brown. Possibly.
I'm not as optimistic just based on how Amaris Brown kind of came off the field.
And it was described as an upper body injury instead of like a specific injury. So
yeah, I'm thinking that's a shoulder thing.
You could possibly sling it up and maybe be okay,
but definitely don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, that could be one.
Yeah, but I mean, hats off to Alabama. They figured out a way to win. I think it was a tighter, clearly a tighter end than they were expecting. I think we all kind of were wondering, well, all right, Buckner's terrible. Ty Simpson's getting sacked. Where's Jalen Milroe? And Saban kind of answered that for us in the post-game presser.
Yeah.
He basically said Milroe didn't respond well to the adversity of this week.
They didn't mention him by name, but as soon as somebody asked about the quarterback situation, he mentioned, sometimes it's about how you respond to things, respond to adversity.
When things don't go your way.
So, it certainly seemed like they told him he wasn't starting. He probably didn't like that too much, and so they're like, you know what? We'll just put Ty Simpson in and try to teach him a lesson. Now, it almost came back to bite him, but I think they probably felt pretty good about the defense being able to hold things down. So,
yeah, absolutely. Next week, Rice. Go beat Rice.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, right? The last few years, you could point to games where they're playing a team that they're, 4 touchdown underdogs against. They play them really tight, and you're like, this is it. This is the turning point. Then you come out of the net, like Florida game last year.
Right.
Come out the next week and just get absolutely skunked by a bad Louisville team. Like, their coach was probably going to get fired, so he left and took another job, bad Louisville team. And you got absolutely crushed a week after the turning point, right? We saw it, previous seasons against tight games against Cincinnati. And now it's about, can you build on this and take it into conference play?
Yep.
I mean, if you get that defensive performance every week, you've got a chance to make a lot more noise, I think, than we initially thought. If the defense backslides back to last year, then you're kind of right back where you were.
Yep. I think the big thing for Bama, they went 3 for 3 in the red zone, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. They were 5 of 15 on third down. I think the glaring thing, time of possession in that fourth quarter, overwhelmingly on Bama's side, 10 minutes and 30 seconds compared to 4 minutes 30 seconds for USF. First 3 quarters, USF controlled the game clock. Over 8 minutes of possession in the first 3 quarters, and it was a 10-3 game going into the fourth quarter. It's all you really hope for. You want to be competitive. You want to show something. You did. And you just kind of backed it up now. Again, the offense just needs to.
That to me, offensive issues are more issues of personnel compared to who you're playing rather than issues of scheme. I don't know if anybody's asked about the fourth down calls. I didn't really mind any of them, especially where I think there was a 4th and 2. You maybe could have kicked the field goal. But I think the odds in your head, you're thinking, I'm going to need a touchdown to tie or win this game.
Right.
I've not been able to move the ball down the field. When's the next time I'm going to get the ball here? The odds aren't great. Are the odds better you convert a 4th and 2, or the odds better you get the ball back and drive it down inside kind of the red zone-ish area?
Right. You kick the field goal to make it 10-6. You just made a 1-possession game, a 1-possession
and
game.
You never sniff that side of the field again. So it's
that's – I get it. It's frustrating. Take the points when you can get them. But in that situation –
I think that's the calculus in your head. It's like, do I have better odds of converting this one play or better odds of getting the ball back, marching down the field again when I haven't been able to all night, and then scoring a touchdown then? I think your odds of converting that 4th down were better. Fake punt, some of the other decisions didn't really come back to bite you, so it's kind of okay. I thought they had a decent look on the fake punt. Might have missed one block, but still the length. I think it was 4th and 10, right? So was it 4th and 10 or 4th and 5? I can't remember.
It was like 4th and 4, 4th and 5.
So it wasn't awful.
And it was they didn't score on the next drive. They punted it. So I mean, it was
just a field position.
Yeah.
The Alabama punter was hitting 70-yard bombs.
So it didn't really matter where you were punting from.
Yeah.
But
let me see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
Jump around.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't see. This was.
Yeah, so Amaris Brown looked quite hurt. I think it's possible. I don't think any Bulls fan of sound mind and body expected to win this game. Great fight. Gonna go Bulls from Stan. So no questions right now.
No, I think that not satisfied, but we're there at least. We're getting there. We're inching closer. And again, got to back it up the next week. I think the thing we talked about last week was, okay, you won the game, you played decently enough to win.
Yeah.
How do you respond the next week? Well, this was a pretty damn good response. Do it again next week.
And it wasn't like some of the previous close ones where the other team was making a ton of mistakes, and that's really they're throwing picks in the end zone and they're throwing picks, and it was pretty much like most of you kind of made the mistakes, and you still had a chance down one score. So I think that speaks well to maybe some staying power, but like you said, you got to see it 2 weeks in a row.
Got to see it 2 weeks in a row, and I guess it's been long enough. DJ Gordon punched Logan Berryhill in the head, walking off the field after that final touchdown. No update on that yet, but they went after each other after that happened. Kevin Patrick was in the middle of that, so keep an eye on maybe a suspension or some internal.
Probably about I want to set boys will be boys.
So, again, that obviously Alabama, Nick Saban even said it post game, we were absolutely trying to draw them off sides. We were going to kick the field goal. You got to go up 2 scores. DJ Gordon jumps offside. The second boneheaded play for him was punching Logan Berryhill with the helmet on. That made no sense. But hey,
you had a couple bad offsides penalties, but those are penalties. Obviously, you don't want penalties of aggression. Hopefully, you get those fixed and you'll feel pretty good. But I mean, compared to the first couple of weeks, penalties way down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Not really much else to kind of add. I think it was pretty straightforward. You lost. You're 1-2. Go be 1-0 next week. 1-0 in the conference. Beat a better Rice team than expected.
Yeah, this game is of really little consequence to what you were hoping to do this year. It's a good measuring stick, but the more important ones are the ones ahead of you now. So go play as well as you did defensively forward, and you'll feel pretty good.
Yep, that's about it. With that, go Bulls. Have a good weekend.
Bulls.